Yo, 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 what's good, y'all? We are back again for night three. And this is our final night tonight. I don't know if I'm competing with anything tonight. Oh, yeah, dude, it's Valentine's Day. Yeah, I don't know how many of y'all out there celebrating, but hopefully some of y'all good single people come in and join me. If you see me moving my hand over here is because I'm also trying to get this Instagram going and flowing so that we are streaming on all the channels. This book has been good to me. I hope you have enjoyed where we have been going so far in our study. Like I said, I am trying to make sure I'm set up here on all the channels. So while I do this, matter of fact, let me get y'all some elevator music or something of the sort. Because, yeah, you, it might take me just a couple seconds today. Just a couple seconds. Let me find some elevator music for you. Elevator music, elevator music, elevator music. Playing. All right. So what's up to y'all over here? Getting my life together. But yeah, let me finish getting this Facebook and YouTube set up over here. All right. Also didn't do a lot of notes tonight. All right. And that says we just keep winning. We just keep winning. And my hope is that as we get everything together within ourselves and our people and our community and our relationship, that that's all we do is keep winning. I am glad to be here with you on tonight. I am Gianni Olamide, your spiritual plug. And I'm glad to be here. Like I said, happy Valentine's Day to you. Um, for those of you that are celebrating, all right. We still gonna get into the meat of the conversation at hand around the crisis that's happening in our relationships within our community, you know. And so I always want to welcome you to this space that we're in. This is a space to be able to be real, to state facts, to address issues, to be vulnerable, and to be open so that we might have some experience of transformation. You know, as your spiritual plug, I am here to provoke your thoughts, to prick your consciousness, and to mirror your own shadows and self back to you. So I hope that's all right. If it is, I would say put a period in the comments, but it looks like I'm here by myself right now, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Whether I am or I am not, I'm glad that you're here. I run an organization called the Alternative Tribe, where our mission is to provide the safe space for Black, Indigenous, and people of color to engage personal growth, cultural development, and community support by bringing together and ordering the resources and things that we already have. I see y'all coming out over here on the Instagram. I see y'all. When you come in and get here, make sure you drop a period in the comments. That way I know you're with me, you know. And so if you are somebody that is sincere about your growth and development, making sure you have access to cultural resources and learning, community support, make sure you are subscribed to the tribe by going to that website right there and making sure we got your email address so that we can include you in our correspondences about when these things are happening, where people are, what's going on, how to be connected. You know, it's my desire for everybody to be connected to everything that exists. You know, and so it's Monday, y'all. It's Monday and it's Valentine's Day, and I'm gonna get in your way and out your way. I'm not going to tarry with you too long, just because we down to our last 5, 6 topics of discussion for tonight, and they're really good. We started last night getting into initiation and the components that presuppose it, right? What are the things that need to be in place before we get there? And day one, matter of fact, let me just do a little small recap, okay? Day one, we talked about the ugly reality of what our condition is. So we went through the data and the statistics on where we are as Black folk with our households in terms of our family structure. We had 72% single family parent households. Less of us are getting married. And not only that, we're not really making a whole lot of money. Like there are a lot of reasons why we need to be established. I mean, why we need to be concerned with what institutions we have established and where we can build power at. What are the centers that we can galvanize to be able to fortify ourselves for more? Hey, I see y'all on here. Hey, Coffee. Hey, Mariella. Glad to have y'all with us. Um, but we got to be concerned with what those are. And one of the primary institutions that we have to be able to do that are our relationships. You know, they are an economic source or resource. And so once we understand them in that way, then we also treat them different, right? So on day one, that's what we went into. What where that has left us as a people and where we still need to get to by virtue of us not having access to some of the things that we need and our ability to have the relationships that we need to create them. And so we went there. And then we also talked about why the spirit of intimacy is a good prescriptive remedy to be able to address some of these issues, right? So we talk about problems, but we also talk about solutions. If there's one, then there has to be the other. You know, we just talk about two ends of the same stick, two different sides of the same coin. And so last night, after we addressed what the reality, how ugly the problem is, and what potential remedy we will be exploring around fixing it, then we got last night into the first 5 chapters of this book where we began to talk about culture and community and the understanding of Sobonfu Some, who is the author of Her People, who she talks about their traditions and their views and their practices, which is the Dagara people of West Africa. And I say of West Africa because they have been spread out as a result of colonization and colonialism. And so we acknowledge that. That they live respectively in a variety of places. But we took some time to get into an understanding of how they see culture and how they see community and what their approaches are to them that facilitate their relationships. We talked about their leadership and their leadership structure and their council of elders and how that council translates into guidance and direction for the people who have relationships that are rooted in trust with these elders because everybody know everybody and they not doing syntheses. How you say that? I don't even know how you say that. You say that like census or like syntheses, syntheses. I don't know. That's one of those questions. But for you English majors out there, I need help. Census, synthesis, synthesis, or syntheses. I gotta look that up. That's gonna bother me. Um, but yeah, they not taking censuses over there, or whatever the appropriate way to pronounce it. But they know each other, so there's no need to do that, you know. And because our relationships with each other are so generic sometimes in a sense, and we are not invested in each other's lives in the same way, we don't always know each other in the same way. But from there to the connection of the elements of the earth and their value, all the way down to um, ritual, the purpose of ritual, what can be done in and through it, the different rituals that the different genders go through. We've been talking about a whole lot of stuff leading up to this place. And so I'm grateful, like I said, for us to begin tonight to go further into beginning with initiation. And initiate, rites of passage is one of those things. It's probably one of our most common understandings of initiation, and it's one type. But it is a way for us to gain knowledge that prepares us for the next stages or level in life that we are about to embark upon, and there are a variety of rituals and ways that we share and gain knowledge that they talk about culturally. But even us over here in the Western world, we have our own understanding of how we are enculturated into these things. And so it's important to make sure that we know how we come to believe and know the things that we know, right? How were these things transmitted? What were the processes that were established in order for us to get this learning in? And a lot of the things that we learn and that we know and that we believe are the things that we taught real early. But one of the things that Sobonfu suggests is that adults not hide things from the youth. In their culture, they talk very vividly about your expectations, your life expectations, your life purpose, um, how everything that you see fits into that, how all of it fits into that. And so what I can say is that as it relates to um, initiation, all of it's around life purpose, making sure that you got an understanding of what it is you here to do, the methods and the means by which you can engage in that, and making sure that you got a village or a crowd of people who support you in that endeavor. The children learn about intimacy from birth on up. Like it ain't nothing that get introduced once you then become an adolescent or whenever people start teaching that stuff now. But from birth on up. And the elders do the guiding of the young people into intimacy, into sexuality, into ritual, so that they know what's waiting for them as adults. There's no need to wander into adulthood when somebody can prepare you and help walk you into it. Hey, Rebecca. And so if somebody can prepare you, I would take that all day. But that's their practice. And so for the women, initiation takes place after the first menstrual cycle. But then it happens once a year between December and February. For the men, they have theirs at puberty or when they start showing signs of hormone changes or wanting to be an adult and are actually acting that out. But the elders are there to mentor them following this initiation process, because the initiation is what opens you up to the knowledge. And now that you have been awakened to it, you got to learn how to navigate it, which is what the mentorship does. But in their mentoring, they also get to tell their own stories, right? Of their learning and of their practice in terms of how they have made it to where they are. And she said something in the book that I thought was really interesting, but she said that mentoring helps to avoid illusory knowledge. And when I think about illusions, right? So many times as young people, we grow, and I'm thinking about myself as an adolescent when I'm talking in this part right here. But so many times we come into knowledge and information and experiences and things that we have no clue how to view, no clue what it really is, how to process it, where to place it, any of that. And then we start thinking of all the things that is a part of our limited experience, and then start subscribing and placing things, whether it's actually where they go or not. And so illusory knowledge, that terminology for me was so powerful because we move blindly in our Western context. And when I say we move blindly, I mean that we do stuff without knowing what we're doing, and we okay not knowing what we're doing, even if we know we need what we need to have some level of knowledge for it. Okay. And we can't make can't make nobody have those type of values, but just to acknowledge that that's there. Like, yeah, that's there. The mentors help teach important lessons. How to build an intimate connection with the spirit, how to get to know yourself, how to get to know other people. How do you develop in the shaping of intimacy, right? The expansion of it, in holding space for it. And so they also teach how to let go of defenses and the need for control, to help cultivate an ability to be able to trust the divine. You know, when we start talking about what else happens in initiation in terms of the learning, women are learn they sacred connections to their cycles and the moon and what's the correlation between them, as well as how to navigate the power that comes with being a woman and menstruating. Like, they take that really serious in ways that we don't over here. I think a lot of times we just be trying to figure out how to take care of ourselves and keep going, not to really make meaning out of the experience. But one of the things that she talks about is the honoring and the sacredness of women and of women's bodies that they learn about in this process, right? And so that also includes like learning a woman's connection to the number 4, and how to maintain your sacred space so that you can be in touch with your divine feminine, all of these things. And because they teach about intimacy from birth on up, once you go through your initiation, you are required to face the purpose that you chose and declared in the womb. So on yesterday, we talked about the rituals that are practiced and what they represent and what they are supposed to produce. And one of those things, that they talked about ritual wise, is when a woman is pregnant, they will listen. They will invoke the spirit of the child to come forth and speak and name their purpose. And the people in the community will listen to what that child has to say. The child, although not born yet, spiritually will take over the body of the convener, will answer from their mouth actually what they're here for. And so once you get to a certain age, you got to go back and you got to revisit that purpose that you declared. And so that happens after initiation. And whatever it is that you declared, the elders are there to help usher you into being able to live that purpose out. Also, once you're done with initiation, the elders are starting to look for who you're going to marry, right? And they start looking early, because marriage is between 16 and 20. They start, yeah. Marriages start between, yeah, or happen between ages 16, And so the purpose of initiation is to provide the knowledge and information for being able to be ushered into adulthood, your next phase of life, with the information necessary for you to be able to be successful and live a meaningful life. you know um when you start thinking about marriage and the place of all of these things in that ritual intimacy, initiation, and arranged marriage, right, where somebody else is actually doing the picking on who you gonna be with. That's really a foreign concept to us, who can go date and talk to and convene and whatever with whoever we choose at any given time. Everybody don't have that luxury, right? I still got some folk who, yeah. Anyway, But marriage is not like we understand it here in the Western world. Over here, we pretty much see it as a business arrangement that can be used to uplift both parties. But folk pretty much get married for a variety of reasons. Um, and in that, we see a reflective divorce rate. For the Dagara, marriage is two souls coming into one, still distinct but forming one entity. It merges two souls, two purposes, two cultures, two sets of gifts, many lines of ancestors and different ways of looking at the world together, and many different ways of strengthening and making the world better. It is the joining of everything when you decide that you're going to accept the elders' arrangement. It's two people embarking on something bigger than them. It's two people embarking on something that's bigger than the tribe, right? Because everybody's invested in everybody. It matters to the people in the village whether or not, you ended up with somebody or you were single. That's just real. And so the elders select the partners for everybody because they know everybody's purpose in the village. And they are best equipped to know who might be paired with who in community. But all of this requires that people actually trust the elders. And so when the elders are making the arrangements, they consider a variety of things, including the alignment of the two people's purposes, the compatibility of energy, possibility of harmonious living and being able to coexist together. And so all of these things are important, but they consider all of these things before they make a decision. And then on top of that, they also go and they consult the spirit. And they consult the spirit through divination to ensure that what it is they've put together is acceptable. Now, we be struggling a lot of times to get it together. We struggle to um, put anything before the spirit, right? Let alone to put all a variety of considerations in place and then go and say, hey, is this decent and in order with your will? And if it ain't, tell me how to fix it and what needs to be the alternative arrangement. What needs to be the alternate, And so because spirit is always consulted, it's not until they get the yes back in return that they'll go and they'll tell the people. But once they get the yes, then it's party time. And so the marriage ritual is as such that once you have been arranged and you have accepted your arrangement, you are not required to be there in order to be married. Like you can get married and and be notified when it's done. Like you get the phone call like, hey man, your wedding was just over. You know what I'm saying? I know you over here in America, but yo honey is over here and you it's official. You got your papers out. We're gonna send your papers in the mail. Like I don't know how it go, but I imagine it could be something very, very much like that. And the author talks about her own marriage and how her experience was with the way the elders approached her, with the amount of time and grace that they gave her to a variety of things. And so what she talks about is that not only can you be blindly married, but there's this other understanding that when you get married, it's not really just for you. Like there are several rituals that must be undergone after the wedding. Um, Gifts are exchanged beforehand, and a lot of times when people hear this, I've heard conversations where folk will be like, "Yeah, but if you giving gifts beforehand, like, ain't that mean? Ain't she getting bought? Like, it 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 isn't one family paying another family for this transference?" And it's just Like, no, they don't believe in that, because their belief is that you can't take a gift for personal gain from the family, or it'll bring death to the family. And so the bride can't be sold, because to take a marriage gift, period, and use that for personal gain is gonna curse the family. So they don't abide and move in those ways. When a, and they don't abide in marriage in the ways that we do traditionally, right? So they matrilineal and patrilocal. So that means when a woman marries, she keeps her family's name and passes her family's name to her children, but all her family moves in with her husband, and they become localized with his. And this is why I hate that y'all Instagram, they be doing their own thing and we can't click the comments, because I got comments over here and y'all can't see them. It's okay. But we do that all the time with soul ties and don't even know it with no guidance. We absolutely do. And we finna get into soul ties in just a minute too, right? Because our understanding of sexuality is so removed from the sacredness of our essence that we ain't got no choice but to misuse it. Just by lack of us understanding our own selves and our own nature. And so this is me over here kicking these comments over here, y'all. But yeah, matrilineal, patrilocal, and we don't even talk about that. In the Western world, we are so familiar and okay with patriarchy that the concept of it being systemic for a woman to be able to keep her name and give that to her children, but completely belong to her husband, is foreign to us. And a lot of the concepts in the book are foreign to us. But what what I recognize outside of this is that these things can actually empower us, because we've been trying to figure out how to reestablish these power in ways that may or may not have been healthy to begin with. Right. And so the giveaway, the gift giving when folk are going to get married, that happens before the marriage is solidified through the giveaway and the sacrifice of a cow. And this uh the gift is given to the bride's family, who then is supposed to slaughter it and lay it out like there. She goes through all the steps in the book. But the purpose of this is for a soul transference ritual, right? Like the woman can't move into the house with the man and his family if her soul has not accepted that this is what has to happen. So they got a soul transference ritual that has to happen. And then once the soul has been transferred from one house to another, then the two people can begin their rituals as a union. Okay. For them to be able to merge souls and to come together. You know, they got a ritual for everything, y'all. And the purpose of a ritual is to establish an order and a process for being able to heal or develop whatever necessary components um, will help facilitate the goal, right? And I say facilitate the goal because every ritual is different and every ritual is seeking to do something different, right? So whether you finna fix something or heal something, or you're gonna invoke something or bring or create or purge something, like you're always doing something in the ritual, you know. And so it's just important for us to acknowledge that once a person partner transitions, they have a ritual of separation for that. That way the party who has transitioned can actually their soul can be disconnected from the souls that have been joined, right? Because it's joined in ritual, so it got to be separated in ritual. But otherwise, they're not going to be able to go and rest in peace. They're not going to be able to transition to their next assignment, to their next realm, because they're still here, right? So a ritual of separation has to happen when one party transitions from this earthly realm. Now, the other thing that I think is interesting is the community accountability that they engage in, because Once two people then, you know, come together and decided they're going to be together, the family and the people who were there when they got married are the same folk that hold them accountable and make sure they work through their shit. Right? So the way we understand how folk get in your business and your relationship and they come trying to come and get the tea, not so they can talk to you about it, but so they can have the tea and talk to whoever about it. Like all that type of stuff. These people not fooling with that, right? Because we all invested in this marriage because it's going to affect all of us. If you don't live into your life's purpose and you don't do what you're supposed to do, we're not going to have everything that we're supposed to have that we need, right? Because the divine, the spirit has already placed amongst us who and what we need. And so there is this inherent trust of the divine and what the divine is doing in our lives, and the importance of us yielding and giving space for the spirit to be able to accomplish whatever it set out to. You know, multiple soulmates throughout each lifetime. Absolutely. But okay, so there's a question that came from Instagram that says, so could this debunk the multiple soulmates through each lifetime? If you undergo the ritual, yes, it can. But if you have not undergone any rituals, you're going to be carrying all of those souls with you through multiple lifetimes. You know, it's just like oath, oath, other rituals, and what is it? Oaths, pledges, rituals, and there's one more that I'm thinking of that it's not coming to me. But when we do that, you can take an oath or a pledge or undergo a ritual in one life and it still be binding in another life, right? So I was sitting one day and I was having a conversation with somebody who was having a reading, and they was trying to figure out why they was working and they felt like all their efforts were still hitting a brick wall. Well, it came out that they had taken an oath of poverty in another life and had to have well, not had to, but had a spell given to them in this one to be able to help break that oath so that the fruits of their labor could be received into the universe, right? Because they had already met, and those are considered contracts. Like when we start talking about these things, now we talk about sacred contracts again, right? What are the things that I have agreed to in the spirit that I'm watching play out in my physical life, whether I remember or not, right? Because a large part of the rituals and the way that they process relationships is to be in remembrance and in accordance with your original divine purpose that you got to remember anyway. But because they begin in the womb, then they already start the connection there. Whereas for us, hey, we're not starting there, and some of us ain't getting it once we get out on the other side. So, you know, we have to be connected to our spirit in such a way that we can do that type of listening. And absolutely, that is why like past life readings are so important. Also encourage folk, you know, figure out who your star family is. Your star family, your star planet, Akashic record readings. What are you here for? You know, I tell people all the time when we start thinking about Christianity and the way the communion table and the Eucharist has been presented to people, you go up there and you you read that table and they say, do this in remembrance of me, and you like to remember Jesus. And it's like, no, to remember yourself, right? To remember your own divine purpose of why you're there, right? Because Jesus is a representative of consciousness. And if the divine consciousness that we are extolling is available to all of us, right? Because that's what I'm here at the table to consume, to partake in, to engage in, to indulge. If I am partaking in this divine consciousness so that I can remember myself and who I am and what I came here to do, then every time we engage in spiritual knowledge or feeding ourselves spiritual food, it is for that end, you know. And that's why I say religion is one of those things where you can't, well, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but there's so much knowledge that's there for us, you know, so much truth. And it just requires us to do our part analyzing and debunking. But I appreciate Elder Somay in this because she just lays it out. Like, we have a completely different way of doing stuff, and it's not like y'all's, and this is what it is, you know. And so yesterday we talked about how education and the more that you know is a hindrance to being able to follow the traditions in the tribe and in the village. And it's because of the exposure to so many things that then can become conflicting. She uses an example in the marriage chapter about infidelity and how people's exposure to knowing what happens in infidelity then ignites a curiosity, right? So if one person is an infidel and then somebody else finds out about it, it's like, oh damn, well, I wonder what that was that made you want to go do that. Like, you know, was it fun? Was it cool? Like, I should try it, huh? I might enjoy it. Like in a very innocent but harmful way, you know. And so I'm very mindful of that, because when you start talking about marriage and the relationship that's had between those unions and the community, we got to place all this stuff. So one of the other things that she talks about in this section is that if two people are together and the only reason that they have come together is to have children, they have limited and removed themselves away from their purpose. And so there's gonna be a strain on what it is you can actually produce in there, right? Because you're not even connected to the deepest part of yourself that you're supposed to be creating from. So that's also going to put a barrier on your child, who now is going to have to figure out the purpose that you as parents should have been able to inherently nurture them into, because you was already connected to yours, right? So this is the case of you can't give what you ain't got. And we are experiencing that shit rampant in our community too. You know, a lot of our parents can't teach their kids what their kids need to know in order to be whole and healthy, or to engage in healthy relationships, because they've not been able to heal or figure out how to establish that amongst self. And so when we get to the place where we realize, hey, there is a value in me healing myself, because as I heal myself, I also heal my community and my kids and my lineage and everything else that's connected to me, like straight up. Because then I can at least tell you when you ain't going down the right path. I can at least give you some metrics that might help redirect you or let you know when you're off course. But if I ain't never done that shit or been there for myself, I can't do that. I can't. All I can do is pontificate about what's possible, maybe. You know what I'm saying? That's why you gotta be careful when you be listening to people who be telling you how to do shit they ain't never did. Well, you telling me about what you read in the book? You telling me about what you heard? If you ain't gonna tell me how you did it, this ain't no help to me, you know. And so I ain't gonna get off track, y'all. But yeah, we got to keep those things in perspective. Because again, when we are out here engaging in relationships, and some folk go and seek relationships, okay? I'm not a relationship seeker. I ain't never had that kind of energy and time in me. Like every now and then I feel like really strong connections and I'll go and follow them, but those are far and few between, okay? They don't know nothing, never, every day, regular, no nothing like that. But when we are engaging in relationships or seeking relationships, being mindful, keep your purpose at the forefront, right? And if you at a place where you have not identified what you feel like your soul's purpose is, what you have been divinely called to do here in this realm as your assignment, I would encourage you to stop fucking dating, okay? Put the brakes on that shit, because it can't go nowhere. It can't go nowhere until you establish this within yourself. Because when you begin to refocus into this intimacy that she's talking about in your relationships, those become primary conversations. Okay, they not how figure that shit out conversations. They at the beginning. What you working on in your life? What is it that You committed to? What are your personal values? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Alignment. I'm asking you all this right now because I don't have time to waste. I already know what I'm doing in myself. I'm clear about it. And I'm so clear about it that I can have a conversation with you and it is of no consequence to either of us if we just not headed in the same direction. It's okay. You're going to find somebody who is moving in that same direction. But I'm not going to hold up no space and no time, precluding both of us from who we might supposed to actually be finding, might actually supposed to be with, might actually be waiting on us in the soul realm, right? Because we spirit. And so when we acknowledge ourselves as spirit, then we give spirit room to do a little bit more around us and in our lives. You know, to keep a healthy relationship, you got to honor the relationship itself. To keep it healthy, you got to have a value for what the thing is inherently. And the divorce rate in America is so high, I would assert, because people do not honor marriage. It is not considered something that is sacred anymore. It is a business arrangement. And a lot of people get into business arrangements for all sorts of purposes and selfish intents. Also, and I wouldn't even say selfish, but all sorts of purpose and intents. And so when you recognize that, you, again, alignment. Which purposes and intents are you trying to be down with? Do you care? Do all of them go? Do, as long as the check right and clear, you don't, you know what I'm saying, you with the shit? Like, we got to be willing to figure those things out and ask those questions. The other thing is for us to honor and acknowledge that we are spirit. First and foremost, housed in these material bodies. We're not just human beings, but when we start with spirit and end with spirit and give it space to move and groove as we move it, then we also create space for a consistent guidance system to direct us in all that we're doing, and then that helps when it's time to actually cultivate the intimacy. Now, intimacy for the Dagara is about understanding divinity. It's not about pleasure. It's not about, it ain't about nothing else but understanding divinity, and what intimacy is an invitation to experience power. It's an invitation to experience power, not to do or to make or to be, but to have an experience. And the power that it is referring to is a power that only spirit can give. It ain't nothing that we can't facilitate half of this. All we can do is make space. And once we've made the space, then we can sit back and be a witness to what else can happen outside of our control. But as I said last night, ego and control do not go with the spirit. If the spirit is going to be able to do something magical amongst you, you got to be willing to submit to it and say, hey, show me what you got. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to just check it out. I'm going to just sit back and check it out. I want to be a witness. And that's the beautiful part, because it requires us to be involved. The only way that you're going to be a witness is if you on the scene, right? You got to be there. Got to be present. Got to be present. So now we're talking about, being present and in the moment, being mindful, right? Being aware, being alert. Yeah. All of those things are important for us to be able to engage divinity, to have an understanding of it. And there's a ritual for that. I love her because she got a ritual for everything. If you want to figure out how to do it, do these things and then sit still. Put these things in place and then sit still. Everything is a preparing of the space, an invocation, and a sit still. Sit still is the work, right? Because it's there that the divine meets us. We always moving and busy and going from here to there and doing a million different things. It's hard for us to get caught, to get the message, to get sat down and to get on one accord. Yeah, straight up. But once we do have the understanding that we can incorporate this into our culture and our ways of being. You know, the Dagara people, they don't have a word for sex. Okay. What they refer to it as is a journey or traveling, you know. You don't want to have sex with somebody. You want to go somewhere with them, you know. And when we recognize that the purpose of sex is not for pleasure and pleasure alone, but there is also this sacred and deeply intimate understanding of what can be produced there, then every time we get ready to touch somebody, we know it's a journey. We going there. They going all the way. At 5 pass, do not hit gold. Do not collect $200. Why? Because there's a spiritual depth that I'm about to go in on. Okay, and in that, something else will be born. Okay. Now, if you're talking strictly physical, then we're talking kids. Okay. If you're talking physical only, we're talking kids. But if we're talking in the spirit, well, that's what happens when we have communion with each other, right? Like when you with somebody that you vibing with, and there is an intimate connection where you are able to be vulnerable, you're able to be your whole self and to show up and just, you know, take your shoes off, be at one, be at peace. There's something in that energy that creates something new, whether it's, you know, folk being able to actually create things. You know, like I'll be looking at these documentaries about these artists, you know, who be getting in the studio together, and then it'd be like explosive magic in there. But why? The intimacy of being able to be vulnerable in your most creative state is gonna give birth to something new. Y'all gonna create something together. Right. So like it ain't gotta be kids, but it's definitely a journey. It's definitely a journey. And it's so deep. And I think a lot of times in our context, right, because of what we were talking about yesterday, that we are missing so many things that we need from community that we then go and look for in relationships, right? We then turn romantic a lot of these connections that simply just touch us, they feed our soul, you know, our soul and our longing and our desire to be loved and to belong and to have the things that a community is supposed to provide. Right. So when we go and we start finding those things in our relationship and we start wrapping everything up in this one person, right? Because now I'm getting multiple things that I should be able to be finding in multiple places and people in one. And then we get unhealthy attachments. And so, you know, when I think about domestic violence and just domestic situations and services, period, I think about how people act after relationships end, and maybe, it didn't necessarily end on a good accord, or, you know, you have people who still got to deal with each other, but don't necessarily like see eye to eye. Like this is a part of we figuring out how to navigate, how to do that amicably, still being amenable to being peaceful. But it's, you know, it ain't always easy. It ain't always easy. But our understanding of intimacy is an aid in that. You know, understanding that intimacy also applies to our being and our bodies. Right? Like our bodies are sacred, regardless of who be joning and who be roasting or who make us feel whatever type of way, whatever body style we see on TV that gets it promoted or shot to the top. What's the word? I don't know if y'all can tell I'm tired as hell, but I'm committed to getting through this study. But regardless of how folk make us feel about them, like our bodies are sacred. And if we were to recognize our bodies as sacred, we wouldn't sexualize them in the ways that we do. Right? Like she talks about how when the women in they village walk around topless and nobody is afraid or in fear that there's a man or somebody that's going to come and attempt to harm them because they have sexualized them in a way that they feel entitled to their body. Okay. They don't have that. Whereas over here, women can walk around fully clothed. You can have a whole hijab and niqab on. You can be covered from your all the way down to your top of your feet. And you still got to worry whether or not it's going to be a rapist around somewhere, or somebody who got power and control issues, or somebody who's going to feel entitled to your body because women are not autonomous beings and they property and they belong to men. It's so many different things. But for me, that was a liberating thought, because that means there is a spiritual understanding that people can be culturally groomed in, to where it makes everybody inherently safe. Everybody, that give me hope. Different people for different seasons, but manifest that potential spirit for what you want to. Absolutely. And what they're asserting in this book is that you call on spirit for everything. It don't matter what it is. All things. It don't matter. Just call. Okay? Because they're gonna show up, and they're gonna help you discern, which people here for what reason or season, and and the place and the space of what it is you petitioning, right? Because we can have whatever we want, y'all. And that's what I hope everybody know. You can have anything that you want or desire that you believe that you can have. So that's the other thing. I know you can have it, but it don't matter if I know it if you don't know it. But we're not talking about that tonight. But intimacy, merging souls, creating new stuff. Sorry, let me go through these notes. I lost my place just here for a second. Um, oh, I was talking about the safety that they got. Um, because they have an understanding of the body as sacred, and not something to be sexualized. Um, but she talks about how children are taught about intimacy from, yay high, and they're encouraged to embrace it instead of hiding it. That they explain and they teach them what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, and contextualize how to see and view one another, so that they don't have to struggle with shame and negative um shame, confusion, negativity in the psyche, all of the things that are so normal to us in the Western world. You know, what I know is that children have a variety of experiences, and when they are taught how to process them, how to view them, how to mentally and spiritually engage them, it helps everybody be accountable, right? Because at the point that something is happening that's not in the context of which it's been explained is supposed to happen, right? I know I need to go tell somebody because something that happened is not right. And not only that, but there's somebody that I can trust to help keep me safe, because this is the teaching of everybody. Everybody abides by this, you know. And when she talks about the privatization of marriage and child raising and family building, and how dangerous that is, in a context of keeping folks safe and making sure that we can all coexist together with enough value of each other that we're not going to transgress one another, yeah, we've done ourselves a disservice in that way. Because we continue to further privatize ourselves, right? Now we just want bigger houses and bigger gates with more land so we can be further away from people. But when everything and everybody belong to everybody, and you are used to that communal life, I mean, I can't imagine how they, make sense of the way we live over here. But a lot of it is from a lack of this wisdom and teaching. She talks about the sacredness of engaging in intimacy, right? The importance of having a space to be able to do that. So a lot of times, and I don't know how many of you travel abroad or if you've ever been out the country, but a lot of times the customs and the ways that they govern themselves are different than what we used to over here in America, right? So they'll tell you, clothing wise, in some places that you go, don't go out and have your limbs showing. You know, if you're a woman, cover all the way up, everything that you can cover. They'll also tell you don't go and don't PDA. Don't be out here touching on each other and looking like you together. It don't matter whether you a man and a woman or whether you same gender loving. Don't do it. And in this book, she explains that intimacy is reserved for a specific place. Like, when your mama used to say, this ain't the time and place for that. Everything got a time and place. Well, for them, they believe that intimacy and ritual should happen in a sacred space. And if it does not happen in a sacred space, then it's seen as a power move. And what it does is it draws outside forces to come and test the power, right? And so she says intimacy outside intimate ritual space is lethal. And so the mindfulness that, yeah, there is a time and a place for everything. And those are things that are supposed to be hid. Not hid, but, left for you and y'all, just alone. I think about that in the context of the digital world and how we got social media now. And social media, it moves us to share everything, and when you share everything, recognizing that secrecy is sacred. There are times where, in order to preserve the value and the essence of what you got, you can't be out here sharing it with everybody, sharing it, showcasing it, laying it out on a platter in front of everything, in front of people and things that you're not aware. You know what I'm saying? It's safe. Then it makes it vulnerable. But I guess if everybody is trustworthy, then that would make, or if you have relationships with everybody and you trust them all the people that are around you that's in your village, then that creates a different line of safety. But in the age of the internet, can we regulate that? How do we regulate that? I don't know, but what I can say is it makes me nervous because we do so much on the phones. We do so much on the phones. She also talks about romance and how romance is so different from our view of romance because they don't have a place in their village. It's an illusion. And she defines it. She says romantic love is an attraction that cuts off community, leaving two people to invent a relationship by themselves, right? Because their romance is directly connected to lust directly connected to pleasure. These are not the purposes for why we engage in a relationship. And if that's the purpose that you are engaging, that you are misengaging in your relationships, if that's where you start. We are talking about the spirit of intimacy by Sobonfu Somé, and it's just a discussion of the content that's in the book, but also talking about it in the frame of Black relationships and and the state of them, right? Because I would assert that we're in the middle of a crisis. Like our relationships are in the middle of a crisis, simply because we not establishing them in ways that allow us to maintain them and fortify power building within them, right? Like whether we're talking about our familial relationships, whether we're talking about the extended family that we create, our business relationships, to an extent, have a cap on them in terms of us building conglomerates and uh, corporations, institutions, systems that allow us to be able to navigate and to put in place order and structure amongst us. And so that's how we got here. If you tapped in later, you ain't know what we was talking about. That's it. And so the author Sabon Fusome is from Western Africa, Burkina Faso, and she goes into the culture of her people and their tribe and how they approach relationships. And it's all based on the spirit of intimacy, which is very different from what we do here in the Western world. And so when they talk about the indigenous view of romance and desire and lust, you know, they don't even think about the other sex as, you know, attractive. They see everybody as their brother and their sister. You know, the sexuality is not an interference. And what they assert is that if people are, if we focused on people sexually, then we actually cannot see who and what they actually are, because we have framed the way that we're going to look at them. And it's around our own personal pleasure, which is a selfish motive, you know? And so when you're thinking about the community and we are looking at everything in context of being connected to one another, it got to be way more than that. You know, but there, I also can say, you know, when you in lust or in like, it really is hard to see people in what they are. The only thing you're gonna see is what you try and do next. Yay, yay. So we got to be mindful when we approach relationships to make sure that we keep our relationships in the spiritual context by which they were intended. So that when we are engaging, we can see not only who and what people are, but who and what we're doing, right? So that we don't get so wrapped up in energy and emotion that we find ourselves misbehaving. Because that happens a lot too. A lot of times, you know, you hear people talking about falling in love and shit. Oh, you know, people want to be head over heels. Those are people, that is the indication of people who do not want to think. Not only do they not want to think, but they do not want to be responsible for the decisions that they are making and the state of blissfulness that they are illuminating, that they desire to be a part of. That is the metric. I hear it straight up. I want to have so many emotions every time I see you. I can't even think. I'm just ready to jump your bones. Oh my God, get your ass over here. Like, these people out there, that's all they want. Matter of fact, I know people who are serial daters, and if the relationship don't feel like that every time, they don't want shit to do with it. Matter of fact, fuck you. Who's next? I need to feel it. I'm looking for it with a flashlight, you know. And so we got to be mindful, especially when we come into contact with these people, because this is when we go back to discerning. If we know that we engage in somebody who got a view of relationships, of love, of intimacy, of passion, of creation, and it is not in alignment with the way that we view it, we don't need to be entertaining the idea of having sex with that person. We can entertain exploring their frame of thought, because Lord, I don't understand how you got there from there. I don't understand how you got there from there, but that's not my subscription. And unfortunately, we're not compatible. And that ain't no harm or no foul to nobody. It don't make nobody a bad person just because you're not aligned in your beliefs, your values, your approaches. It don't make nobody bad. Folks who just need a moment. Oh, I know it. Hey, I know it. And we live in a culture. All right. So the question was, what about folk who just need a moment? Okay. Because I do realize that every now and then there are itches that just need to be scratched. And we live in these bodies. And sometimes they do what they have their own stuff that they be wanting to do. They do it by itself. Okay. And that's just how it works. But, you know, discipline and self-restraint and self-control, you know, are really important. And I think a lot of it comes back to viewpoints and values. We have inherited a variety of viewpoints that have allowed us to be open to things by virtue of us not knowing better. You can't apply what you don't know, you know? And so as we learn better, you know, a lot of this stuff we can't go back and correct on our own for ourselves. Some of it we can, some of it, that ship is sailed already. But the kids, y'all, we got to learn this shit so we can teach the babies so that they don't got to learn the same lessons that we learned, right? In the land of healing generational curses and figuring out how we go another direction, you know, we got to attack that shit from every angle, okay? Because that's how the enemy coming at us. They ain't sleeping. They ain't taking no breaks. They don't give no fuck, okay? So if we can apply, we can learn better and apply better and then teach what we have learned and begin to apply and teach as young as possible. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, this whole concept of them teaching their kids from in the womb, where they do the listening ritual and ask the baby, who are you? What are you coming for? What is your purpose? What are you coming to do here? There's a depth there. The kid is gonna come out with different framework, you know what I'm saying? And then depending on how you want to nurture your lessons and your daily design and your structure and how you approach family and teaching it and developing the child, all that stuff works together. You know, we gotta be okay acknowledging one, not only that these things go together, but that we gotta make sure we know what our place is here, what we doing and what we not doing, what we cool with, what we not cool with. Don't let don't let nobody have you confused out here. Don't let nobody get you fucked up. Don't you do it. No, no, no. Come on. And not even just the cousins, baby, pick the parents. All the babies pick the parents. And the parents pick the babies. Usually because we have legends to learn what our nuclear families. Absolutely. Hey man, I'm telling you, self-stimulation, it will save your life. And I say that because again, you can't give what you ain't got. Can't teach nobody how to give you what you need if you haven't figured out what you need. If you haven't figured out what you like, you don't know your body well enough to be able to help somebody else know how to navigate it. Like all that stuff matters. Now in their culture, not so much, because ain't nobody doing nothing with sex until it's time to do something with sex, right? And all that happens in ritual in very specific fashions. But we also got to be aware that when we talk about traditional African culture, like you still got women over there that's experiencing genital mutilation, right? Because you're not supposed to enjoy no sex. So I want to be clear that I'm not romanticizing this in any way, but I would like to juxtapose their ways against our ways in order for us to come to a more wholesome analysis of what might work better for us. Right. And she also warns us, don't try to treat this like no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in terms of fixing your life, because that's not what it's for. What it is an explanation around how to engage spirit so that you might engage spirit in those ways, and spirit then will reveal to you what the fuck you need to be doing. Not my job. Okay, she's very clear in that way, and she don't use those words, but I love to reinterpret, do translations. But yeah, painting, breaking shit in a healthy manner, oh yes, all of that. You know, I have different materials that I like I like run my hand over velvet. I don't know what it is, but like I love velvet. To feel it. I like I like different textures on my skin. I'm very sensory. I have to smell stuff like incense and candles, like all that stuff. I'll be with all the feels when it comes to self stimulation. Everything. Okay, everything. So when it comes down to these relationships, like I said, romantic love don't fit for them. They understand that it don't fit, and they cool with that. They also believe in continually renewing your relationship, though. You know, making sure that you got ways to keep it fresh. And so they have rituals to be able to periodically cleanse your relationship with your partner. They got one that you do every 5 days. And then they also have annual ones where they're bigger and allow you to renew not only with your partner, but also with the village and with your place and commitment to it. So the point, it, like I said, is not only to keep it fresh, but if there's any issues that need to be resolved, any residue of energy that's lingering, or stuff that didn't get necessarily settled, it's been able to release and remove all of that. And release is a conscious and an active act as well. And so what I can tell you is that a lot of times people be carrying stuff and they carry it for so long that they don't know how to release it when it's time. Okay. It's like the hands get locked in place and the bags is just stuck around the fingers, and then you gotta like go through and like take bags off each finger. But either way, it's a struggle. And a lot of times, if we don't have community to help usher us through a process, or to help us see things from a different view other than our own, or to tell us a different story other than what's going off in our head, we can really struggle. And so they have rituals in community that help maintain the continual renewal of keeping the freshness of relationships. Because again, the people who supported the relationship, the marriage in the beginning, the families, the people in community, they are also the same ones to help make sure that they work their stuff out, and that folks stay accountable to that. Now, conflict is not considered a bad thing in amongst the people. It's considered a great gift, because in the conflict there is a revelation, right? So if you mad at me about something, or if I'm mad about you, or if I'm mad at you about something, you come and you let me know, hey man, I'm gonna use this example because I feel like this is one of the greatest examples when it comes to men. Hey man, you left the toilet seat up last night when you got in the, when you got in the bed. You left the toilet seat up. And I've mentioned this to you on multiple occasions. However, the toilet seat still keeps ending up being left up. Now, this may seem like a small issue, small conflict, right? But the way she frames revelation and understanding, my continual disdain with this one issue may also be an opportunity for you to identify, maybe I'm not necessarily inconsiderate, maybe short-sighted, right? I'm only thinking about the fact that I got to use the bathroom right now, and I'm not thinking about the fact that you got to come in here later, right? So many different things, but it relates back to the essence of who you are and the ability to be able to grow and expand and be in this relationship to help you with that expansion, right? So a part of that is also being able to receive and accept the revelation of things that need work, and for your partner to be able to be a mirror to you in that way, right? Because you're already also on the same life path for your journey, for what you there to do, you know. And so conflict is used in those ways to continue to resolve and to continue to allow revelation to come forward, so that we can govern ourselves differently and stay, and for some of us maybe move into, but to move into and stay into functioning in our higher self, the essence of our living in our vortex. you know the ash circle is one of the rituals that she brings up the most in the book, and it's for you and your partner to do, whether it's around being able to illumine issues, um, communicate around things that have been unsaid or unresolved, or even hold the space to invite intimacy and spirit so that the creation of something new can happen. Like it is one of those central rituals. But yeah, address those problems, y'all. They talk about divorce and loss in the West. And divorce is a foreign concept because where you going and for what? In the event that we are allowing spirit to lead, spirit will always give us space to figure out how to resolve. Now, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, because I also believe that spirit, spirit will move us to discern appropriately when it's time for us to separate, right? Because sometimes your season is up. Your purpose has been fulfilled. The reason by which you have come together has been executed. So there ain't no reason to continue to hold on to things. But and they understand it, they don't believe in divorce. Okay. Um, Figured out there is a purpose for what you're there to do. And it is all around expanding. But I'm a believer that when you get to a place with people where you're no longer growing together, you're no longer expanding, you're no longer doing these things that are actually supposed to be happening, then yeah, you do got to cut it off because people are going to grow together or they're going to grow apart. So if you've already started to grow apart, yeah, I guess one of the continual renewal rituals might be able to bring you back together. It just depends on how long it takes before you get there. But in the event that divorce is needed, or to walk away, usually they die out of theirs. For us, sign them papers, papers. Speaking of, yeah, I understand. Had to sign them papers, but it was for the better. Because in the relationship ended up, flourishing in a better way by not trying to force romance. Because the alignment of purpose wasn't there. But all of this is predicated upon us actually approaching our relationships with the intent to align our purposes with whoever we finna be in relationship with. Right? So like whether it's my friend or my lover, the goal should be to expand. But what does that finna look like? We're not starting there. Then the question is, how are we maintaining our relationships and what are we centering that around? I always find myself having this conversation when I be thinking about old friends. Hey, into me you see. Yes, I love that. Yeah, we got this intimacy is into me you see. Yep, take off your armor and show up. But wait a minute, what was I talking about? Oh, divorce and loss. And there are also separation rituals for that too. Y'all, I also would like to say that. Because again, there's a ritual for everything, a way to engage. Um, there's also a grieving ritual that is meant to happen after you have gone through separation, right? Because grief is also a normal part of losing relationships, whether we're talking about somebody is transitioned in the physical body and they have passed on, or whether we're talking about losing a relationship that you simply are no longer going to be connected to. It is important for us to hold space for our feelings and our emotions and what that process of release looks like, because that's what's happening is release. Now, I want to make sure that I've covered everything that I have wanted to before I go to this last chapter, because I imagine this last chapter gonna get a little, I don't know, might get a little hot. But she also goes into their view of homosexuality, um, and they call, what they call the gatekeepers. And so before I hit that one, what do I think about people finding their own rituals and making it a part of something to carry into the next lifetime? I think we, first of all, we all make our own rituals all the time. Okay, when you get up and brush your teeth in the morning, that is a ritual. Like it, I think we've got to be more intentional about creating rituals for the purpose of allowing us to connect with spirit and connect with each other. I think a lot of the rituals that we create, or that we find ourselves doing ritualistically, we didn't put that level of thought into. I think we're learning how to get there, especially as we go into more indigenous spiritual systems and learning how to connect with nature and just the science of I don't even think science is the word I want to use. I think just us moving in our awareness, right? Because as we go further into the age of Aquarius, I think we're gonna seek more knowledge. Just because of where we are in the universe and what that space is requiring of us. But yeah, I think it's just gonna happen organically as much as we allow it. But yeah, I'm with it. And as we decolonize our minds, um, it's gonna have to be we're gonna have to be intentional about it. But I would, and I don't know what your spiritual practice is. For me, I would also say just make sure you know what it's rooted in, whatever ritual that you decide to put together, because everything it came from somewhere. And as my mother would say, there's nothing new under the sun. So just make sure you know what it's rooted in, you know all the components of what you're creating. I think that's the best way for me to put it. Now, in this last chapter, the gatekeepers, she says the words gay and lesbian do not exist in the village, but there is the word gatekeeper. Gatekeepers are people who live a life at the edge between two worlds, the world of the village and the world of spirit. Though they do not marry in this world, they say they have partners in other dimensions. What they do, they don't like to communicate to anyone. It is their right to keep it to themselves. Everybody in the village respects that because without the gatekeepers, there is no access to other worlds. Most people in the West define themselves and others by their sexual orientation. This way of looking at gatekeepers will kill the spirit of the gatekeeper. Gatekeepers in the village are able to do their job simply because of the strong spiritual connections and also their ability to direct their sexual energy not to other people, but to the spirit. Now, I thought that was really, really interesting, right? Because I had never heard an understanding of two spirited people, same gender loving people in this way, right? And so the other thing that this made me think of, right? If this is really the view of folk who have a foot in both worlds, our life, how do we sift through the folks who actually are the gatekeepers and the people who are experimenting or discerning who and what they are sexually, right? Because based on what their practice is, there's not a lot of discerning happening over here, which equates to sexual repression, which I don't advocate for. But I also know that we have a lot of influences that have promoted the engagement or the experimentation with homosexuality. Okay. And I say that as somebody who exists on the spectrum and I identify myself as queer. Um, but because of that, I have seen, like I said, I have seen it. People just trying to figure out who they are. What do I like? What is happening inside of me? What am I experiencing? You know, and so for me, this part of the book makes me think about the need to have safe spaces for folk to be able to process their sexual urges and talk about their desires and their experiences in ways that will not cause them to be judged, but that will allow them to be able to figure it out, right? Because shame and confusion and negativity has been such a stigma around how we talk about sexuality and how we talk about learning and understanding it. I remember my white friends was in college getting it in, and they was like, "Oh yeah, you didn't, your parents didn't tell you that this is the time for you to do that? You mean this is the time? Nigga, y'all put this on the schedule? What the fuck? How did y'all?" Okay, don't even get me started. But it was a completely different cultural view, right? Not coming here for these certain things. They come in here to figure that part out because when I get done with here, I'm gonna find me a mate and I'm gonna get married. Now, not saying that any of this is right or wrong. Not saying any of this is right or wrong. But what I'm saying is we gotta assess our practices. We gotta assess our practices. So if the view of people who in the Western world we would normally call homosexual is of such esteem in their tribe, the requirement, and I don't even want to call it a requirement, the way that the gatekeepers handle themselves regarding their own sexual desires and urges, that's so next level, right? And then I also juxtapose that against what I actually see out here in these LGBTQ communities, where folks just was it wide open and you tell it ring it. I mean, it's that all of it's out here. I mean, I don't know, but what I can say is there. It struck me that we need some kind of safe space for folks to be able to actually have conversations and do discerning around their truest sexual desires and nature. And I say that because there's a lot of folk out here who can't be themselves, man. Can't come out. Still got fears around how folk gonna receive them, or whether they're gonna be thrown away or cast aside or devalued or unloved or any of that. That's real. And like I said, the issue of sexual repression is a very big thing that comes to my mind. But I would imagine that if you are moving in the spirit of intimacy and you are allowing that to permeate your relationships, then whether it be on purpose or not, it's going to come a time where those things are going to begin to reflourish out. Going to begin to reflourish out. And so, I appreciate the sacredness that was applied to all our people when she shared their culture in this book. There was not a person that's black or indigenous that was framed negatively. And what I know is that a lot of times when I talk to people who talk about Pan-Africanism, who talk about traditional African systems, I have heard a lot of miscontextualization around what is actually being provided, especially when you start talking about LGBTQ folk, right? Because a lot of folks are like, yeah, that shit ain't gonna go. It's just gonna end up being like, but it's just like, yeah, no, this view, the sacredness and the intimacy that's being acknowledged in a unique value that is being brought out here by this group of people. You know, like how do you facilitate that, right? Like not talk about it, but like what does it actually look like if we were talking about putting something like that in place? Because then I started thinking about the little Christian camps where they was doing shock therapy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, what it say? What it say? But yes, discernment for sure. And us being able to love on one another, even if we are not all practicing the same lifestyle or, doing the same things or not necessarily considering ourselves on the same path. Like there's so much potential that she offers us for how we can go back and reframe how we look at one another, first of all, how we look at folks, and then how we treat folk. How we treat folk. Even folk we say we want to like, right? Because a lot of this, a lot of these things are so different. Whether we're talking about friends or chosen family or folk we considering dating, y'all, we just really got to take a step back and give our people the space to get what they need and to be supportive in the process. So I'm not going to hold y'all overly too long. I appreciate you for being here with me, for digesting this content. I appreciate all y'all that made comments. I want to say this is the most engagement I've ever had on Instagram in my whole life. So thank you so much, Business Major 2.0. To y'all over here on Facebook. I know y'all was quiet on tonight. Normally y'all be over here tapping in with your questions and your commentary and all that. What I hope is that it meant you was taking notes because I said something that was good. If you have not purchased this book, The Spirit of Intimacy, I encourage you to get on Amazon today and get the book. It is only 140 pages. But when I tell you it will sincerely bless your life and move you into being able to discern for yourself what you got happening in your relationships, definitely you want them. So I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. What y'all want to talk about next before I go? How about that? Um, I'm studying a whole lot. I always have been. Y'all see this library? You can't even see all of this in front of my whiteboard is over there, but it's books all the way around. But what do y'all want to talk about next? You know, if we was gonna do a fix my life hood spiritual plug version, like what we need to be tapping into? Is it kids? Is it communication? Is it relationships? Because we touched relationships first. This was my request, and I'm so glad it's February. But yeah, what is it? Is it like business and us being able to get stuff started up? Is it our spiritual practice and we lost because we left Christianity and we don't know what to look at next? Like, what y'all want to talk about next? Unlocking our slave mindset and understanding trauma. You got it. That's a good one too. That's a good one. So yeah, I'm gonna see what I can put together, y'all. But yeah, for sure. Today is Monday. I see y'all again probably about Wednesday, Thursday. Also got a podcast coming soon, y'all, called Cultural Climate. And it will be myself, sister, a Liberian sister, and a brother who uh I ain't gonna say he down with the nation. I'm gonna say he practices Islam. Is very astute, and is Pan African centered. But it's called Cultural Climates, and it's conversations that juxtapose life in Native African or traditional African culture with that of us as Black Americans. And we dreaming of liberation together. But this podcast is because so often a lot of our people over here romanticize African traditions, culture, because they feel like we don't have those things. Yet all the Africans is trying to hurry up and bring their ass to America, okay? Because it's something over here that they feel like we got that they ain't got. And so it's really, I find this really interesting to me, and I just want to dive into it, because I think the more that we unpack it, the more we have real conversations with each other, because there also needs to be this Pan-African connection that's happening where Black Americans and Native Africans is figuring out how we gonna make these continental connections, right? How we use the wealth and the power and the influence and shit that we have amassed over here in America and start exporting that shit back to Africa, empowering our people so that we ain't gotta pimp each other. If you travel internationally or abroad and you done been to some of our Black countries, then you also understand that exploitation is real, and it be happening from the government, right? So if your government is Black and your people are Black, you pimping your own people, or you putting them in oppressive and situations of duress. And so if there can be ways that we can help relieve the economic pressures that may be causing, because I think some of the other economic pressures are like greed and selfishness. Um, then yeah, but yeah, definitely want to go in there. Oh, got another one. The real Trail of Tears. Come on for the Indian Black people, for the real Black Indians, right? Because we here. I just want to say that. I ain't gonna take my hair wrap off so y'all can see what's up under here. But my people, Black Indians, dark Spaniards. The the Black of all the not the ethnicities, but yeah, for real. And now we trying to figure out where we go as homeless orphans when we know this our land, and we know some of our folk was imported over here, but they acting like it ain't what it is. We ain't got to ask for that shit no more, sis. That's what I want to say. We should have been stopped asking for permission to take our rightful place. And until we get to a place where we decide we gonna just step up and do it and make an example and make them reckon with the example that's in front of them, we ain't having no conversation. That's where I'm at though. So that's also a conversation that we can build into talking about the real Black Indians and the Trail of Tears. There have been some awesome documentation that has happened, but I think we can start with a conversation on exterminate all the brutes. If you have, I think it was on HBO. If you got HBO, I don't know why I want to call it HBCU, HBO. Exterminate all the brutes is a great watch on what happened to the indigenous natives of this land. Okay, the Indians. And it go through the details. It go through the details of all the peace treaties that was made and that was broke, and all the land that got stolen, and it was a whole lot. It was a whole lot. Okay, shout out to Tecumseh and all of the chiefs that didn't surrender. All of them. So yeah, we definitely, I'm down to do that. We're gonna and to talk about this trauma, and how we can move beyond our slave mentality. So I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I hope that while we talking about these relationships, you are experiencing some kind of love in your life today. And I hope you don't feel like you got to have somebody else to go do that, okay? Because you can love on yourself and hug on yourself and give yourself all the care and anything else that you might think you might want from somebody else to you. And I promise you, the more that you do it, the more you'll feel better, and you will start attracting whoever is going to actually give it to you, okay? Because they out here, but give it to yourself first and watch how fast they start showing up. Watch how they start popping up and just start doing all kind of shit you ain't expecting nobody to do. Oh, but you attracted it to yourself because you had already had it. You became it. You became it when you gave it to yourself. You had no choice but to show up. So yeah, make sure y'all love on y'allself sometime tonight. Make sure you get what you need. And yeah, man, like I said, I'm gonna see y'all later on this week. And if I don't see y'all before Sunday, it's Sunday for sure. Every Sunday around 8 o'clock, y'all gonna catch me. So I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Y'all have a good night.